Welcome everyone to the Antiverse, the name given to this fully stocked ant room, whose every flat surface above floor level supports flourishing ant kingdoms of various sizes, in which colonies of ants live, die, hunt, multiply, form packs with other creatures, and deal with a variety of life challenges and events, ranging from mite infestations, invasive wars from savage ants, cannibalism, struggles for power, and lately, a giant flood. Basically, the real ant life stories, which could give Game of Thrones a run for its money. These tales of success and failure make up the incredible and often unpredictable world of ants. But aside from how incredible and epic the lives of these ants are, what makes each of these ant kingdoms unique is that they happen to be the most well-known ants on YouTube. Welcome everyone to the Ants of the Antiverse, who have officially hit 2 million subscribers. Please subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon. Welcome to the AC family. Enjoy. Greetings AC family. Looks like we did it. It seems like just yesterday we hit 1 million subscribers, which was mind-blowing enough. And here we are now, hitting the 2 million subscribers mark. So for this week's episode, I wanted to ask you guys what you wanted to see for our big 2M celebration. And well, many of you asked for a complete full ant room tour. So AC family, as usual, your wish is my command. Today I will walk you through the indoor biodome that has become my ant room, to visit all 8 of my current ant kingdoms. And if you're new here, you'll also get a brief backgrounder on each of the ant colonies' backstory, so you may better understand why they've become so special to us. I realize that many of you may be new to the channel, so be prepared to be mind-blown. And AC family, if you're a regular to the channel, brace yourselves, because the updates I have to share today on every colony will definitely shock you. Also, keep watching until the end, because I will also need a lot of your input and votes for certain matters. And I also have a special surprise to celebrate us hitting our 2M subs mark. So let's begin with the newest ant kingdoms and make our way down to the oldest. Last week, we followed the creation of our newest addition to the Antiverse, the Plateaus of Gaia, a multi-level terrarium whose design was to nurture a self-feeding system where tiny creatures called springtails would breed, and the ants living there would hunt the springtails down. All I needed to do was add organics, water, and light, and it has been working marvelously so far. The Plateaus of Gaia are home to the Jawbreakers, a ferocious-looking trapjaw ant colony with menacing jaws which open 180 degrees and can snap shut with record-breaking speeds and force. The bites from these ants are intense, and if you watched last week's video, you'll see how epic their hunting prowess is. Now I won't delve too much into this ant kingdom since we just saw them last week, and there is much to report on the other ant kingdoms ahead. But if you're interested to discover more on the Jawbreakers, feel free to watch last week's episode. Now let's move on to the next ant kingdom, who won my heart, and apparently many of yours a couple of weeks ago. Welcome everyone to the cutest ant kingdom of the Antiverse, the mystic floating island of Vista. Vista is home to a bustling super colony of Phaedoli ants, also known as big-headed ants. They're called big-headed ants because of the fact that these ants are polymorphic and have massive majors, soldier ants with huge heads, which specialize in cutting open food and defense. On the day they moved in, like a scene of ant paparazzi, we also were lucky enough to catch a glimpse of their 4 royal queens. Here's Queen 1, 2, 3, and 4. They founded this colony cooperatively because this species is polygynous and allows more than 1 queen per colony. Today, the island of Vista continues to bloom, with new shoots developing from the Great Tree of Wisdom, which stands at the center of the island. The shoots appear as little reddish buds, which give way to new baby leaves that grow in their place. These buds fall to the mossy floor to decompose naturally and fertilize the soils for the tree. And oh, it looks like we have some garbage to clean. The ants have been eating a lot since they moved in, and I just love how they make it so easy for me to do my work as their weekly garbage man to clean up after them, which I am happy to do. These are superworm exoskeletons, which their co-inhabiting springtails and mite friends clean further of any remaining superworm meat. And hey, look, it seems they're not the only ones digging through the ant scraps. I see fly cocoons and a maggot. It seems flies and gnats have taken advantage of a Vista's open concept design and paid the floating island a visit to lay eggs. These new Avista-born citizens will become adult flies and migrate elsewhere to mate and lay eggs onto some other decomposing material. The ants don't seem to prey on them. They are, after all, cleaning up after their mess, along with the springtails and mites. Let's pat the area down to make room for today's offering. A cockroach head. They'll surely love this. And AC family, watch this. It totally shocked me to see a line of ants suddenly rushing out of nowhere to the roach. How on earth did they know about it so fast? I wonder if they've come to associate my scent and close proximity with feeding time. The ants came pouring out of their hole from across the island to collect the goods. Look at how determined that worker is to pull that huge roach head. I think you're gonna need some help there. Perhaps some strong major's jaws will do the trick. All this protein will be essential to the egg production of their queens, as well as the fairly rapid growth of their young. Due to their 4-queen egg production and all the food they've been eating these past 3 weeks, I have no doubt in my mind they are growing in numbers fast underground. When this colony outgrows a Vista here, I plan to create a bridge leading to another floating island and continue expanding in this manner until a Vista is a network of connected floating islands. Wouldn't that be so cool? Alright, AC family, new and old, while the ants are feeding here, it is now time to cast your vote. Let's give this 4-queen super colony of big-headed ants an official name, shall we? Please take a quick moment to vote here on my top 5 picks from your name suggestions and comments from their last video. Thank you, AC Council, for your input. We will announce the results in a future video. Okay, time to move on. Let's move eastward to revisit the enchanted region of Jagan Island, a kingdom which quickly became an AC family favorite. It is a moated paludarium ant kingdom because, like other past ant kingdoms on this regional shelf, Jagan here was under siege by a wild colony of pharaoh ants whose thirst for ant blood and meat seemed to be insatiable, and even massacred a great past colony of ours. So, Jagan was designed to be a moated world, to keep pharaoh ant scouts out, and to swallow these ants up if they ever tried to swim across to get to the island by way of guardian Raspora fish, who prowled this river of dragon's tears. Like Jagan's moated gators, the presence of these predatory fish has worked at keeping pharaoh ants away so far. So if you're new to Jagan, initially this ant kingdom was inhabited by another colony called the Black Dragons, but was replaced due to their escape by another ant colony we've called the Platinum Dragons. These ants are pretty cool and are commonly known as lesser weaver ants for their well-known behavior of making nests within leaves of trees and shrubs. But for now, the Platinum Dragons live here, quietly within the great skull that adorns the eastern plateau of Jagan. They clean each other lovingly to help alleviate the effects of a plague which affects them. You see, on the day the Platinum Dragons moved into Jagan 4 weeks ago, we were shocked to learn that they were battling a severe plague of mites. You guys voted for us to proceed with mite therapy using lemon slices. But AC family, I think you'll be surprised with what I have to show you now. Check this out, guys. On the night I was going to start the lemon therapy, I offered the ants some sugar water in a Snapcap vial, which they absolutely loved. But examining the ants' bodies, I immediately noticed something very exciting. The ants showed signs of having little to no mites encrusting their bodies and eyes. I maybe counted 1 or 2 mites per body, if any, but this was much better than the clumps of mites which infested each worker back when they first came to us. So this was totally amazing news. It meant the phoretic mites were loving Jagan habitat and falling off the ants to become free-roaming mites, feeding on their usual decaying matter. In fact, the ants were showing such promising signs of a healthy recovery and appetite that I decided to simply hold off on the lemon therapy for a bit and see if their mite riddance would continue naturally. Look at them just devouring that cockroach like there was no tomorrow. It was great to see them eating up all this valuable protein. In fact, their excessive gorging on sugar water and cockroach meat was a good thing for them, as they could transfer these nutrient-rich goods from mouth to mouth, a process called trophallaxis, to each member of the colony, but most importantly, to the queen, wherever she was. You see, when they moved in here, they only had one single larva, which was very critical because these ants actually need their larvae to spin the silk needed to glue their debris nests together, at least to make this skull a little less exposed to the elements and more enclosed to keep humidity in. But because they only had one larva when they moved in, it was like they lacked the nails and cement essential to build their ant house. So for the past 4 weeks, they've resorted to living within this very open and drafty skull. The poor ones. But hey, now that the ants were eating lots, I was hoping the queen would therefore be egg-laying lots, so they could get on with producing more larvae, so they could finally build a much more suitable nest. But AC family, I have something to report. News that will shock you, as it did me when I discovered it. A few nights ago, something happened with the platinum dragons. Look, peeking into the skull one night, I was speechless. The ants were completely gone, not a trace of them anywhere. Oh no, my mind raced as I immediately had black dragon flashbacks. I assumed they had escaped, just like their predecessors did. I checked the foliage above to see if it was touching the lights. It wasn't. I checked the waters for drowned ants. Nothing. I inspected the soils to see if perhaps the colony had relocated underground. I could see no evidence of the platinum dragons nesting there either. And then I saw it. AC family, the news regarding the platinum dragons is that they've officially created a leaf nest. Look! Right there! See all that debris? I literally jumped for joy when I spotted the platinum dragons had created a royal leaf suite within the concave spaces of the leaves. This was amazing! And what was even more cool is that it seems the ants have actually ripped off the debris walls from their old camp within the skull and carried it way up to incorporate into their new home. Alright, these ants recycle! Another reason that this was exciting news is because the fact that they've built this much larger and more natural nest structure indicates that for sure the colony had enough larval force to produce enough silk to glue all this debris together. As we hoped, AC family, the queen has been laying eggs. Yay! They've even used some leftover roach exoskeleton to give their leaf nest structure. Talk about resourceful. And look, there are some platinum dragons now, assumingly guarding the nest entrances. I also noticed some springtails had followed the ants up in the leaves, which was surprising because I always assumed springtails were strictly ground creatures. But on El Jagan, I guess they've evolved into tree dwellers. Now I also noticed some peculiar webbing adjacent to the nest, which I had a hunch was not a platinum dragon structure. Have a look. Now I did some snooping and I wasn't able to capture it here, but just this morning I spotted and confirmed that indeed this was a spider's web. But the spider was super small and not a threat to the platinum dragons. My guess was that the spider was probably taking advantage of the small flies that were attracted to the decaying roaches that the ants dragged up to their nest. This was also super cool because this spider could also protect the colony, kinda like a guard dog, against any patrolling pharaoh ants that may somehow make it onto the island to get at the platinum dragons. Man, don't you just love when animals come together and team up? Just awesome. Oh yeah, and there's one final piece of news to report about the platinum dragons. AC family, just this morning, as the ants dragged their latest meal up to their nest to feed on, I noticed something that I think we all were hoping for. I am pleased to announce that as of this morning, all the ants' body mites have officially disappeared. Isn't that great, guys? The platinum dragons are healthy, they have a new home, and they have a very promising future ahead of them. And now to move on to an ant kingdom we haven't heard much about lately. In fact, we've only seen them in one episode. In the lowlands sits the Grove, the quaint territories of a young colony of terrestrial carpenter ants. Now, we haven't heard from them much because their colony is still young, and they live underground, where we can't see them. They're also nocturnal, secretive, and feed very infrequently. Carpenter ant colonies, as a rule, are relatively slow-growing when the colony is young. The reason they feed infrequently is because they actually have repletes, specialized worker ants who act as living food storage for the entire colony, which means they can gorge themselves with food above ground when it's available, and then they can regurgitate and feed all the food to these specialized fattened repletes, who then become the colony's living food banks to distribute food over an extended period of time as needed. A very useful adaptation if food above ground is scarce. Hence, not much to report on them. I do suspect the colony is living somewhere below this huge rock, but I'm reluctant to lift the rock up to check, in fear of injuring the queen and young. I feel, in no time, these ants will be abundant, and we'll be seeing them foraging above ground more as the colony grows in size. There is some news, however, on their ever-evolving territories. Some new plants have begun to sprout, like this cute spade-leafed plant here, and this very cool and cute miniature plant, which I love the look of. It kind of reminds me of a miniature version of mistletoe or something. And look! Some awesome patches of moss have naturally begun to grow in the grove. This was so awesome! I have never been able to naturally grow moss in my terrariums, but here in the grove, it happened naturally, as they appear completely happy to carpet the ground. Now, I still have hopes the colony will one day move into this hollow bamboo, where we can better see them. Okay, so let's move on to the grove's twin territories. Flipping the table around, we have the ever-notorious wilderness, known as the Shire, territories of our exotic colony of Asian bullet ants, called the Black Panthers. Every single time I look into the Shire, the territories look so different. Look at all that healthy vegetation. It truly changes the landscape. Inspecting closer into the thick forest, some Black Panthers are working on a fresh cockroach carcass. These ants love their cockroach meat. In fact, take a look at this. One ant comes along and completely ditches her recent catch of a pack of worms and joins in on the roach feast. These tiny worms, by the way, are also a regular food source to the Black Panthers, as I've recently come to learn, and are routinely harvested by the ants quite easily from the watermelon pieces I place into the Shire. You see, the watermelon is not only food to the Black Panthers, but is also food to a variety of flies, as evidenced by this maggot here, springtails, and tiny worms which clump together to breed. And I discovered the Black Panthers have been regularly harvesting these worms, like gathering tasty berries from the surfaces of the watermelon slices. In fact, these ants have proven very intelligent in their techniques for food collection. Of course, the ants prefer portable food items that can easily be carried back to the nest. But when something is too large to drag back home, watch how crafty the ants are. This ant grabs a mandible full of roach meat and incredibly starts to pull. AC family, watch closely as the ant displays a huge feat of strength as it attempts to literally pull the guts right out of the roach. It is actually gutting it right before our eyes. Amazing! I could not believe what we were seeing. As you can imagine, doing this requires enormous strength, but something tells me this isn't the first time she's done this. She relentlessly pulled and pulled with all her might, as more and more roach guts came disconnecting from the roach's exoskeleton in a slimy mess. Opportunistic mites latched on to feast on the freshly gutted food. And with a final strong pull, the roach's guts were suddenly separated from the exoskeleton. And the ant proceeded to carry this new fresh piece of roach meat home. Unbelievable! I cannot believe we just filmed this whole process! Right, AC family? As she brought the roach guts into the nest, it made me curious as to how the inner nest was doing. I moved the rock rampart concealing the nest interior aside and peeked in. Immediately, I noticed a ton of cocoons, all packed in a single cocoon hatchery. Wow! All these dark brown sausage-looking things are Black Panther cocoons. Within them develop adult ants. this colony was truly growing. And in a nearby chamber was the colony's larvae nursery. Look at all those hungry, squirming larvae. They cried and reached to feed from a piece of cockroach the ants had dragged into the nest the day before. It was amazing to see the Black Panther young like this, as we've seen in the Black Panther's previous episode. I've never seen ant larvae so mobile before. So overall, it was very promising to know that the Black Panthers were also well on their way to success. They had healthy young, a new upcoming army of members in development, and have been quite sufficient at gathering all the food they needed. Alrighty, Sea Family, so now we move up to start revisiting the great OG colonies of the channel, beginning with the Golden Empire, our massive colony of yellow crazy ants. Welcome everyone to the Hacienda del Dorado, the great ant kingdom, which started off as a simple, neat garden, but developed over time into this huge, partially open concept paludarium. Now, if there's an ant colony that's gone through a lot, it has been the Golden Empire. These ants have been through so much, including surviving a mite plague and even merging twice to form a super colony of now 8 queens. But not without a war first. With their booming population and no predators to limit their population growth, we attempted to add carnivorous plants into the lands and even introduced a predator, a praying mantis, to hopefully control their explosive numbers. None of these options proved effective for population control. And so we finally decided to add this spring pool called the Golden Springs, whose purpose was not only to provide the ants with a fresh supply of water, but also hopefully naturally pick off a considerable amount of weaker, less nimble ants that fell into the Golden Springs where they would drown. This solution has actually proven effective over the several months since the pool's installment. The Golden Empire no longer seems overpopulated. The Golden Springs have been the perfect population limiter, and within its waters lived a water beast to feed on all the dead and drowned ant bodies. Meet Emperor Sapphire, the colony's pet water beast who calls the Golden Springs home, and he is super OC at keeping the pool spotless and tidy, but we love him for it. Now, AC Family, this may shock you, but something has happened to Sapphire Emperor since we last saw an update on him. Here lies Emperor Sapphire's empty shell. The Golden Empire has eaten all leftover parts to it. You see, what has happened was Emperor Sapphire has once again shed his skin, and I fed this discarded exoskeleton that he didn't eat to the ants, which means our Emperor Sapphire here is even bigger now than he has ever been before. Have a look. Let's coax him out with some fish pellets. There he is. He's still quite shy, but as beautiful as ever, and much, much bigger. As he stepped partially out into the light, it made me realize that soon we'll have to relocate him into a much larger aquatic space. It will certainly be sad saying goodbye to Emperor Sapphire, whom we've watched grow from just a tiny crayfish to this huge, gargantuan water beast, who, by the way, could have left his watery home at any time, but has been perfectly content living in these crystal clear waters. AC Family, do let me know in the comments what you think we should do with him. And if we're going to replace him, should it be another crayfish or some other creature? I gave the Golden Empire a cockroach to feast on. I truly love this colony of yellow crazy ants, who have beaten the odds and proved they had what it takes to build a successful ant empire despite all their challenges. And so, AC Family, we're almost done our ant roster as we move on to our second last ant kingdom that literally has had 0 challenges over the 2 years we've had them. Let's look at how the Dark Knights have been doing. Our super colony of black crazy ants, living in their multi-unit setup composed of naturally designed stacked AC Outworld units, all connected by a network of tubing. Now, this colony has been so drama-free, it hurts. Trust me, I've tried to film them as often as I could, but there was always no update on them ever, as they just seem to be the perfect problem-free colony. If I tried making a video on them, it would just be the same stuff as was covered in their prior video. The Dark Knights are one of the 2 ant colonies to first inhabit this ant room, and the entire time, they've lived in a rather simple setup, the conventional ant setup, involving tubes connected to separate contained units, which I do love. It's what makes the Dark Knight's home unique from that of the other ant colonies of the channel, because their setup is quite simple and not some complex paludarium. But wait, simple does not mean boring at all. No. Look at all the different units they occupy. We have Dark Knight territories here, connected by tubing all the way up here, as well as behind the Hacienda del Dorado, down this connecting tube, to territories up here, and even back there, an Uncle Milton ant farm. In fact, the Dark Knights have the most expansive setup of all the ant kingdoms, with a total travel area of 55 feet, which even extends the other way via a tube running up here, through a wall outside the Antiverse, and descending down to my first floor, into my kitchen, and connecting to the territories of the Dark Knights of the South, an AC Outworld and AC Hybrid Nest connection. These ants naturally travel great distances, and are largely nomadic in nature, which is why it's no surprise the Dark Knights have loved this current setup and proved to thrive in it. But AC family, want to see the coolest part about all this? Alright, watch what happens when I place in a roach. I always try to stagger where I place the food, so the ants don't always get their meals in the same place. A few Dark Knights discover the new food, and this is when the magic happens. Look at how quickly the message of new food spreads throughout the entire territories. These initial scouts discovering the roach instantly get excited and run off to spill the tea to all members of the kingdom. News spreads first to the nearest nest. Workers come rushing out from underground as soon as they get news of their new food prospect. The news of food travels through the tubes, through informants who rush out to nearby lands and inform every ant it comes in contact with. These ants then go on to spread the news of food, traveling through other tubes, to reach ants in the distant regions. This causes a slew of ants to come rushing in to check out if the quite literal juicy gossip is true. It doesn't take long before every member of the colony is informed of the new food located in one of the units. Of course, news spreads in all directions. It also travels the other way, and travels down the primary highway leading out and into the netherworlds below, to the Dark Knights of the South, which of course causes hungry and excited ants to make the long commute upstairs and across over to the exact unit where it had been reported that a roach sits waiting to be consumed. Isn't it just incredible being able to visually witness ant news spreading like this throughout all camps of the ant colony over such a great distance? I love observing the mechanics of ant news distribution, particularly in this expansive setup of the Dark Knights. So it seems this colony, as usual, is doing well and is problem-free. Oh, and if you're new to the channel, you may find it interesting that this colony is technically immortal. Yes, this colony just started off with 2 queens, but has grown to hundreds of reproductive queens, all laying eggs. You may want to watch a past video on this colony, where I explain how the queens of this species can produce males which are genetically unrelated to their birth sisters, a phenomenon which baffles scientists. But it means that the males of these ants can go on to mate with their sister queen alates in the nest, to spawn even more egg-laying queens, totally defying the limiting rules of incest. Therefore, as long as no outer force kills the colony, the Dark Knights will technically be self-producing and will live on and on and on forever. Talk about the perfect ant colony, wouldn't you say? So that concludes 7 of the 8 epic ant kingdoms of the Ant Room. But now, we move on to our final ant colony that has provided me with the greatest amount of satisfaction over the years, but has also caused me the most stress, provided me with the most challenges, and in every meaning of the word, given me the most pain. They happen to be the very reason this channel first exploded onto the YouTube scene, and are inarguably the most famous ant colony on this channel. Welcome everyone to the Selva de Fuego, the South American biotope river paludarium home of the Fire Nation, our massive colony of fire ants. Leave a comment if you're a die-hard Fire Nation follower, I realize there are many of you. The Dark Knights and the Fire Nation were the very first ant colonies of this ant room. And it is just amazing to think that with just a single pregnant queen ant, the colony has amassed millions and millions of aggressive, hungry, resourceful, and remarkably waterproof ants. About 20% of this ant kingdom is composed of a flowing river, matching their native motherland territories of South America. In fact, all plants and animals within this kingdom were hand-selected for being South American in origin. It even has its own waterfall and automatic rain system. But unfortunately, as you may have heard last week, the Fire Nation is currently facing yet another crisis, which I promise to explain this week. AC family, something has happened to their refugium, their hidden water reservoir, housing an extra team of cleaning plants. I believe there has been a leak. I don't know how or where the leak happened, but when I discovered that the soil portion of the Selva de Fuego was completely flooded and waterlogged, I panicked. I removed the outflow tube from the refugium and connected it directly to the waterfall to restore the water flow down the river. But what scared me was how much water had flooded the territories, and my only hope was that the Queen had managed to surface fast enough during the flood. If she hadn't, the Fire Nation was inescapably doomed. As if this wasn't a problem enough, I also noticed that all our guppies, which once danced within the waters of this river, were missing. AC family, our guppy gang was nowhere to be seen. It looks like we have another major crisis to figure out and fix, and I need more time to work on it and figure everything out. I will be sure to update you on everything next week. But meanwhile, leave me your thoughts in the comments. Should I replace the refugium or just completely get rid of it? What do you think happened to the guppy gang? Do you think the colony was able to surface the Queen on time in response to the flood? As always, the fate of these ants depend on our concerted efforts and collective decisions. Now, with our collective consciousness of over 2 million of us, watching from all around the world, we form the most powerful and united mass intelligence we've ever been able to access. Much like our beloved ant colonies of the Antiverse do, to problem solve and overcome challenges. And I do believe we can save the Selva de Fuego and our Fire Nation. Crossing fingers, AC family. And that, guys, concludes our ultimate tour of the Antiverse as it exists today. And as usual, I will continue to do my best to tell all the stories of these ant kingdoms as they mind-blowingly unfold before us, so we can gain inspiration from these ants, which are in many ways a mirror of ourselves and all of mankind. Wouldn't you say? You know, I sometimes wonder who may be watching us from afar, like a mass consciousness and observer rooting for us secretly from some expanse of separation as we manage our way through worlds they created for us. Mind blown. And at that, I conclude with our motto, which has remained unchanged for 9 years since the genesis of this channel. It's Ant Love forever. AC family, did you enjoy this week's long 2M subs episode? Man, I hope and pray the Fire Nation and Selva de Fuego inhabitants will survive their current crisis. But with your help, I know we will fix this. So hit that subscribe button and bell icon now, so you don't miss out on the progress of this ongoing ant story. And hit the like button every single time, including now. But now, AC family, as promised, it's time for something a little special. As a celebration of 2 million subscribers, to celebrate worldwide ant love, I got some of my greatest YouTube friends to play the Ant Scientific Name Challenge, where they do their best to pronounce the scientific names of ants. Perhaps you might recognize some of them. AC family, enjoy!
So I'm here to give you guys the authentic names of these ants. This is your boy d-trix, and if this makes the cut, subscribe to my channel. The Dominic Show. Hashtag ad. The first ant, obviously, Pogonimrix Mix, Barbatus, Paganomeric Mix, Barbutus.
Tetramorium sacepitum.
Anoplopetis crasilla pes.
And what is drawing on there? Camponotus noviboracensis.
So I have some ant scientific names here, and my job is to try and read these ant scientific names to you guys who are watching. Okay, so the first one is camping in Pennsylvania. Okay, camping in Pennsylvania, USA. Like, who wants to do that?
So these are scientific ant names. My personal favorite, the Solenopsis invicta, which I think is in Harry Potter. I remember him from that one. Perfect.
Paratrechina. Longicornis. It's when you paratroop to China.
And last but not least, your favorite ant, Avi. Diacoma rogosum. It's like robitussin, but a rogosum. And those are awesome ants. Be careful of those ones though, because they bite.
Tetramorium immigrans. Are they from a different country?
They migrated from Europe.
Immigrants.
Yeah. Also,
Immigrants.
Okay. It sounds like a spell from Harry Potter.
Ecophila.
Okay. Are they cheating in Scrabble? Because why did they put an O when they could just put an E?
Camponotus noviboracensis. Pogonomermex barbatus. Chromatogaster cerasi.
It's ant love forever.
It's ant love forever.
It's ant love forever.
Ant love forever. I'm just joking. Cat love forever. Yeah.
Yes! AC family, please allow me to thank each and every one of you for all the support over the years. All of you who have subscribed to the channel and tuned in to watch ants every week and help these ant colonies grow. You guys are the true MVPs. It blows my mind that there are over 2 million ant lovers in the world, and counting. We are now officially on the road to 3M. Alright, for all of you AC Inner Colony looking for this week's hidden video, feel free to watch here if you would like to see more extended play footage of your favorite ant colonies of the ant room. And now it's time for the AC question of the week. Last week we asked, who is Gaia in Greek mythology? Congratulations to Michelle McCollum, who correctly answered, Gaia is the Greek primordial goddess of the earth. Congratulations, Michelle! You just won a free ebook handbook from our shop. In this week's AC question of the week, we ask, which is your favorite ant colony in the Antiverse and why? Leave your answer in the comment section and you could win a free Hybrid Nest 2.0 premium ant farm from our shop. Hope you can subscribe to the channel as we upload every Saturday at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed this video to help us keep making more. It's Ant Love Forever.